You're listening to the Really Useful Podcast. This is the tech podcast for technophobes from MakeUseOf.com. Welcome to the show. I don't know about you, but I always dance to the theme tune, and I'm not a dancer. In fact, if anyone could see me, they would say, that is not a dancer.
You have to give a little bit of a wiggle, I think.
Yeah, you do. It's quite a funky tune, isn't it? Gavin Phillips is joining me. I'm Christian Corley, and we have got for you a cavalcade of tech news that matters to you, and then some tips and tricks that will help you make the best use of your technology. And we also have some recommendations. I think we've got at least one. Have you got one, Gavin?
I've also got one this week. Would you believe it?
Excellent. We've got two recommendations for you. We will kick off with Apple's new full-sized HomePod. It is back from the dead. It is a second-generation device which sports built-in temperature, humidity sensor, and more. Basically, Apple discontinued HomePod, and now they've brought it back. Apple, I didn't know they discontinued it, Gavin, to be honest with you. That passed me by completely.
No, I'm going to admit, me likewise, to be honest, Christian. Yeah. There's such so many home hubs out there now that one dropping off the map doesn't really register in the same way as it would have done, say, 5 years ago.
Yeah, you say 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I would never have imagined Apple would be a sort of a home hub, sort of smart home integrated unit company. So, because there's so many out there, but more recently, I mean, the fact that they had this, I really thought it was kind of like a premium thing. There was something I reviewed not long ago, a security system, which was touted to have integration with certain things, but actually didn't, or certainly the version we received didn't. And the Apple Home Hub was one of them. So anyway, they have announced the return of the second generation HomePod, which looks almost identical to the original with a mesh fabric exterior and backlit touch surface on the top, and it's powered by the S7 chip, which you find in Apple Watch models, and offers the same ultra-wideband technology as found in the HomePod Mini. It does lots of things. It has a built-in temperature and humidity sensor. It integrates with smart home things for you to control them. And generally, if you have an Apple computer or a smartphone or a phone, obviously, or watch, you might feel this is the better option for you. It was discontinued, the original one, for a number of reasons, including the high price. This one is $299. Now, I wouldn't say that's a low price for a home hub, is it?
No, but I think it's more akin to what you expect to pay for home hubs these days that are more integrated with other smart home technology. And I think that's one of the key features to point out here is Apple have been somewhat un-Apple-like, and they've actually included the Matter smart home standard that was launched at the end of 2022. And for those that don't know, this standard makes it much easier for all of your smart home devices to communicate with each other. So previously you'd have various different communication standards, which meant that if you bought a home hub that used one, you would probably have to kit out your entire home using that specific communication standard. Matter has come in, and although not everything supports it yet, more and more manufacturers are rolling out with this new standard because it makes everything so much easier.
Exactly. We'll move on now to the news that you can now repair your broken Galaxy S22. We've talked about the right to repair movement in the past on the Really Useful podcast, and it's basically a movement that pushes for people to be able to repair their technology rather than having to send it to landfill or pay extortionate prices for the manufacturers to repair it. iFixit has been given lots of given permission and given the special bits that they probably didn't. No one was allowed to republish or know about. Instructions, guides, whatever, steps, clues, unlockables, to make it possible to repair things. Samsung launched a self-repair program last year, and it is now added to that the Samsung S22 and the S22 Ultra. I mean, it's not cheap though. As with other phones, including Samsung's self-repair program, you can replace 3 parts of a Galaxy S22: the screen, which includes the mid-frame and battery, which is $160, or $183 for the S22 Plus, or $233 for the S22 Ultra.
Wow.
The charging port costs $60, and the back glass costs $60 as well. I mean, looking at those prices, you can kind of get a clue as to why maybe Samsung was quite willing to join the self-repair program.
Absolutely, God. Instead of people RMAing their phones, they were like, "Oh, you guys just have a little go at it yourselves, and then see what happens."
Yeah. Oh, look, our profits have gone up.
Yeah. Oh,
How
you
did
cynic.
that happen?
God.
Yes. So, I mean, those are expensive. It's not unusual for displays to cost a lot of money, especially these days. I remember there was a phone I replaced the display on with third-party equipment many years ago, and the third-party display was substandard. So what happened? This was a HTC HD7 or HD2, one or the other, and the new screen basically got hot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had to get another screen, which, I mean, all in all, I probably spent £100 on those 2 displays. One was like 30, the other one was like 70. The one that worked was like 70. And so it is important to get the real deal when you're buying these displays. So, I mean, with that price, you are expecting top quality replacements, not substandard
I think you
replacements.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they come from an actual self-repair program, at least you know that you are going to have the actual correct part with it. The worry, I think, with these things, though, like, everybody should have the chance to fix their smartphone. I know from previous attempts at fixing a variety of smartphones that I've managed to replace a part, but I've broken something else in the process.
Yeah.
So, like, often you have to remove, you know, you have to unclip the radio, or, you know, you have to take apart the sealant that makes the phone waterproof. And that's another big thing as well, is if you have a waterproof smartphone, as most of them are now to a degree, once you crack it open, there's no guarantee it's going to remain waterproof once you put it back together again. No. So that's always something to consider.
Yes, that is a problem. I remember just double-sided sticky tape was holding one of my phones together, and once you'd opened it up and peeled that off, you just replaced it with another sort of 4 slices of double-sided tape. Which these days, in the age of as you say, waterproof phones, that seems very, very basic, because now we're talking like little bits of rubber piping, aren't we?
Yeah, like full-blown gaskets around the
Yeah.
entire edge, and then with internal features have them as well, So, and once you take them off, I know on iFixit they do have replacement guides for these specific things because it's a big part of it. But the actual reality of it is, unless you have sometimes the proper glue, or the rubber gasket fits on perfectly again, I don't know. I wouldn't be trying to drop my phone in a bowl of water anytime soon. That's for sure.
That reminds me of that review I did for a rugged phone a few months ago, which I dropped into a bucket of water. But let's move on. Gavin, what was your first music player?
I had the original Discman. Yeah, which was really cool. But and although part of the technology was obviously that it wouldn't skip when you were walking, definitely did. But I absolutely loved it. It was great, and it was the first time for me that I could, pop a disc in and walk around with it, and you could actually go down to the local music shop or HMV or whatever it was at the time, and browsing music was good fun. What about yourself?
Well, do you know what? I've got a Discman in here somewhere. But my first thing was a kind of a cassette player with some, Sony Walkman style cassette player, but a lot cheaper, and with some really uncomfortable headphones with orange foam on them. And those little metal straps that go across the head, they were horrible. Especially if you fell asleep wearing them and you woke up with like a cauliflower ear. It wasn't a Sony Walkman because they were too expensive for the likes of us. But the Sony Walkman is back, incredibly, and it looks amazing, I have to say. I'm really impressed with it. Music's been going in a strange direction lately, hasn't it? We've been going back towards more tangible formats. And now we've got the Sony Walkman NW-A306, which is designed with 36 hours of battery life, which is pretty cool, isn't it?
It does look really nice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think there's a big push in the last sort of year or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, towards having an actual portable music player again, which is interesting because, obviously smartphones came along and we were like, don't need to carry all these extra devices anymore. It's all from your phone. But there's like a growing interest in having higher quality overall audio. And I think Sony have realised this, which is why they've launched this new Walkman. I've noted that it only has 16-bit audio, and if you really wanted like a full high-res audio experience, you'd go for something probably with 24-bit or 32-bit to get full high-res audio. But with that in mind, it's still going to sound a lot better than basically anything your smartphone can produce, even if you're using one of the high-res Bluetooth audio codecs that you can get on Android, and Apple has its own version as well. The price as well is pretty good. I think it's $350 I read, which is pretty good overall.
Yeah. It has Wi-Fi as well, so you can use, and it runs a version of Android, so you can, all those things, Spotify or Amazon Music or Audible, audiobooks, and things like that, podcasts, you can listen to all those on it as well. I think it's a really nifty piece of kit. It looks a bit smaller than the standard old-fashioned Walkman. I would say it's probably about the size of an actual cassette tape rather than a thing that you put cassette tape in. It has a USB-C port and buttons down the side and a touchscreen device. It looks really, I really fancy it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is really nice. I really like it. Really like the look of it. One thing I would say, though, is if you don't want to go for the massive or, quite a large outlay, isn't it? $350, $400. You could always get a portable DAC, a digital to analog converter, that plugs into the USB-C port on your smartphone. And you can pick up a really good DAC, portable DAC for, $50-$60. And that will massively improve the audio output of your smartphone without having a massive outlay. So that's another thing for people to consider if they want better audio but want to keep a few more pennies in their pocket.
Good tip. Now, I'll make use of colleague and our really useful podcast colleague, Ben Stegner. Recently, I say recently, it was a few months ago, but bear with me, compiled a list of the must-have Windows apps and software for any new PC. Regular listeners will know that I use Linux. Gavin is a Windows user, but back behind me in the house is a Windows PC that my family use, or a Windows laptop that my family use. So I thought it'd be interesting to go through this list and kind of judge the entries and decide whether we agree with them or not, Gavin.
I feel like we're going to get judged hard, us Windows users.
Well, no, I'm going to approach this purely from the viewpoint of someone who needs to install software for his wife and children on the family laptop.
Well, that makes sense, yeah. And it's I've had a look through the list, and I think there's some good choices on here.
Yeah. Okay. So number one, internet browser, Google Chrome. Now, Google Chrome's kind of ubiquitous, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think, given how widespread it is now used, and how much of the internet is built for use basically with Google Chrome, I mean, I wouldn't pigeonhole anyone into using it. There are good alternatives, Firefox or what have you. But for an out-of-box easy experience, probably the best.
Well, Google Chrome is based on a browser called Chromium, which Microsoft Edge is also based on, and various other browsers that you probably have or maybe haven't heard of. Firefox isn't. Now, I use Firefox day to day, but for the purposes of recording this podcast, we use a website called CleanFeed, which gives us nice quality audio, and that doesn't work on Firefox, so I actually have to use Chromium on my Ubuntu system in order to record this show. So, yeah, so as Gavin says, Chrome is the kind of the prime browser, and it is what almost everything supports. So I think we can go along with that. Number 2, cloud storage. Google Drive is Ben's suggestion for the best cloud storage application for Windows. I disagree with this. What about you?
I use Google Drive because it's simple and it's there. But I also have a network attached storage at home that I use when I'm at home. So it's a bit of it's super simple for syncing when I go out of the house. So that's the only reason I use it.
Yeah, I mean, I use Google Drive in a kind of a mobile capacity, so all the photos get backed up onto Google Photos. So I'm kind of using Google Drive in that sense. I use Dropbox mostly.
Ah, okay.
And I've got a subscription for Dropbox because I've got a lot of data, and everything that's been on Google Drive is eventually will end up on Dropbox. Old hard drives, they get backed up to Dropbox. Everything I have gets backed up to Dropbox, basically. Eventually, I will have a NAS, and I will not need Dropbox anymore. Certainly not a paid subscription to Dropbox anyway, but in the meantime, yeah, we use Dropbox across most of our devices, apart from the ones that the children have for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
you know what kids are like with swiping.
Yeah, I get for like out of box use again. I think you could go with either of them. One that I've never really got along with though is Microsoft's OneDrive. I never really found that useful.
Well, I had OneDrive for quite some time. Years actually, because I had as you'll know, I had a Windows Phone way back when, and that came with a bit of extra storage for OneDrive. And do you know, I went into it the other day to find some photos that I knew. I was looking for a very specific photo of a Raspberry Pi, which I knew that I'd taken on a Windows Phone. Couldn't find it anywhere, and the reason I couldn't find it anywhere is because the photos wouldn't open. OneDrive does tend to be a bit flaky for me. I don't know if it's the same for everyone else.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences where files just don't work anymore, have become corrupted or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, don't think that's happened with other cloud storage services I've used.
No. Okay, number 3, music streaming, Spotify. Where are you on that?
I'm a big Spotify user. I think partly because I pay extremely little for it through a family account. I think it's £2 a month rather than
that's good.
15 quid a month or whatever it should be. I think if I was paying full whack for it, I might feel differently, to be honest, because the range of music and the way its algorithm works and pushes very, very similar music on you at all times is somewhat frustrating.
Yeah.
But, that's also down to me listening to the same genres of music over and over again.
Well, yeah, that does happen. I've had Spotify on in the car and I don't like it. I don't like the adverts. Because the free version, because I have a subscription to Amazon Music, which is what I would go for this. I think Amazon Music's superb, and it gives me amazing playlists, like generate playlists based on stuff that I listen to. But because my children also listen to Amazon Music, and we don't have a family plan, because we do have a family plan, but it's only me and Kerry on it because the children are too young to be added to the family plan. So their suggestions are wrapped into our suggestions, which kind of varies. It mixes things up a bit. So I would go for Amazon Music for this, to be honest with you. To be honest with you, Amazon Music doesn't get the love it deserves.
I was going to say as well, one of the other plus points of Amazon Music is that if you pay a little extra, they have a really good high-res audio tier as well, which Spotify doesn't. And if you wanted that from elsewhere, you'd have to go for like Tidal or Qbuzz or one of the other high-res services. So if you've got like top-tier audio equipment using something like regular old Spotify, you're not going to be getting the best out of your audio hardware.
Number 4, Office Suite. Ben has suggested LibreOffice, which I wholeheartedly agree with.
I've not used it in years at this point. I use just VS Code and writing Markdown. I don't have much use for other Office apps these days. I know when the kids come home with homework and we have to fire up Microsoft Office, and I look at it and I go, wow, there's a lot going on this interface. I don't know if it's still like that, but I always liked LibreOffice back in the day.
Well, I use LibreOffice. I think I really want my children to be using Linux and open source software. And, you know, they come home from school and they're using Google Classroom and stuff, and you fire it up in Chrome, because it doesn't work in Firefox too well. And you find that they have to write something in Word. I'm thinking, well, we're using Google Classroom here. Couldn't they just write it in, you know, Google Drive? So it really annoys me.
Yeah.
But I use LibreOffice. I installed LibreOffice on this computer many years ago, and I'm still using the same installation. I installed it more recently on my my more portable laptop with a better battery, and I didn't know this at the time. It has multiple interfaces, so you can have different skins. So you can have one that looks more like traditional Word, traditional Office apps. You can have one that looks more like the current Office apps with the ribbon toolbar as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of useful if you're used to one or the other. So yeah, LibreOffice, definitely. More people should be using LibreOffice, I think. We shouldn't need to be paying for Office software now. It's madness.
When there are so many good alternatives, it doesn't make sense, does it?
Number 5, Ben has suggested image editor Paint.net. I have used Paint.net extensively over the years. I can't think of a better, more flexible tool that is it's not quite PowerPoint, because, beg your pardon, don't mean PowerPoint, I mean Photoshop. It's not quite Photoshop level, because you don't need those things in it, but it does everything sort of up to the Photoshop level, and it's absolutely perfect for everything from resizing to cropping to recoloring to fixing. It's excellent. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. I use it for all my image editing for the same reasons. I don't need the advanced stuff that comes with an actual Photoshop subscription, and it has a really extensive array of user-created third-party add-ons and extensions as well. So you can get loads and loads of extra features that don't come with the standard installation, and it even has a user-created content-aware fill. I don't know if you've ever tried that extension, but that's one of the things with Photoshop is, you know, you can erase part of an image and it will fill it in contextually from the surrounding pixels.
Right.
And the one on Paint.net is definitely not as good. But for very small jobs, so for a really good example, actually, I took a photo recently when I was on a trip and realised that in one of the pictures, I'd obviously had dirt on the end of the lens and not realised. Oh. So on a series of pictures that I wanted to use, I was like, oh, there's a blob of dirt right in the frame, but the content-aware fill, you know, because it was a small area, just erased it and filled it in perfectly. So that's really handy. That
wasn't for a make use of review, was it?
It was not.
Thank God for that. Because James might be listening. Ben suggests for Security Suite to use Malwarebytes anti-malware. I'm not sure about this. What do you think?
I mean, I'll go in here and say that I have a Malwarebytes subscription, and I have done for years. So I use Windows Defender and Malwarebytes. I think at this point with Windows Defender, I probably could drop the Malwarebytes subscription at this point. Windows Defender is absolutely excellent. Frequently comes in the top rankings of antivirus testing. It's unobtrusive. It's free. It's on your computer already. You don't need something like Norton or McAfee or Bitdefender or blah, 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 or all the different antivirus software that they want to sell you that cost loads of money. You just need Windows Defender, and you need to keep it up to date, and that's all anybody needs these days.
Yeah, and keep your browser up to date as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But like the general thing of, you know, antivirus companies trying to get you to spend 100, 200 quid a year to buy a product that, does exactly the same as Windows Defender, maybe with a few little extra features here and there, but most people don't need those extra features. They just need their computer to be secure. And for my money, Windows Defender does that.
Yeah. I mean, I've probably told this story before, but 20 years ago, I installed Windows XP, and within sort of minutes, my computer had a worm.
Yeah.
Because Windows XP had no active firewall, and there was worms on the internet, and log on to the connect to your ISP, and within minutes of being on the internet, you've got a worm on your computer, and it's purely because of a lack of security software on Windows XP. As I say, 20 years ago, went out to Windows 10 and 11, and they're far hardier. You've got Windows Defender. Yeah, you really don't need third-party security software unless you're doing something really risky with your computer on the internet and with dodgy data. Number 7, media player VLC. I think everyone's going to agree with that, aren't they? It's marvellous.
Yeah, there's nothing better than VLC. I mean, there's arguably better ones with more plugins, but I don't know, why would you use them? Just VLC just works perfectly every single time, and it supports a ridiculous range of video formats, and it's free, so why not?
Yeah. Number 8, screenshots. Use ShareX or ShareX. Is it
ShareX? I would
ShareX.
say ShareX.
I'm not aware of this tool.
Yeah, no, I use ShareX. It's funny, I'm like, oh god, I use every single app on this list. Not quite everyone, but ShareX I've used for quite a long time. It's really, really handy because it can be completely basic in that it just gives you, like area control of your screen, and you can take screenshots of different bits, you can take different shapes of them, but it comes with like really some more advanced bits as well, so you can do automatic uploading to image hosts, sending them to your private storage and all this sort of stuff. So it's one of those tools that's really great because it can be as basic as you want, but it's got some really nice advanced features as well.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I mean, when I've used Windows, I've just used the built-in tools, but yeah, that looks kind of useful. File compression and extraction 7-zip. That's kind of everyone uses 7. Doesn't everyone use 7-zip now? I know there's a few alternatives, obviously, but I think that's the one that
Some people use pzip, I think.
Oh right, yeah.
Which is like the go-to alternative. So 7-zip or pzip. But Windows is also now much better than it used to be at extracting file archives than it used to be. Because
yes,
before,
it is,
I think, was it like Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1? It would be a bit like, what on earth is this file? How do I possibly extract it? And now it actually comes with built-in tools on Windows 10 and Windows 11.
Yeah. I think. I mean, there are alternatives, but I think 7-zip's a good one, and it handles pretty much everything that you need to unzip. So. Yeah,
I would agree. Another useful tip for 7-zip is it has an encryption function built into it. So if you want to encrypt some files in a hurry, you can throw them into 7-zip, create a password, and they'll be locked up. It's quite handy.
Okay, number 10, messaging. Ben suggests Rambox, which accompanied in the article. We'll include the show notes in the links. No, we'll include the links in the show notes. It says boost your productivity in the screenshot, and I'm pretty sure I don't know of any messaging service that boosts my productivity. Anyhow, this is his pick for the best messaging app on Windows that lets you add accounts from dozens of popular messaging services such as WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Skype, Telegram, GroupMe, Discord, and even other tools like Apple Music. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. I personally don't see the point in a tool like this. Would you? I mean, would you? And there used to be a lot of tools that did sort of all your messaging apps in one, and it's kind of a type of app that I'd forgotten existed.
Yeah, I remember one that was it was all of your messaging apps built into one, and it also had torrenting built into it as well, which is just like Vital software. What was that called? I can't remember, like Quillian or something like that, I think it was. But To be honest, during the workday, I tend to keep all sort of messaging apps to a minimum. We have, our work chats, and that's the only one I would keep open. So something that combines multiple chats to me seems a little superfluous, but if you have lots of chats going on, if you are, I guess a media manager, social media manager, something like that's got to be worth its weight in gold if you're not having to flick between multiple tabs, multiple programs all the time. So, I can imagine if Ben's using that, it comes with a good solid suggestion.
We've next got a clipboard manager. I've never used a clipboard manager other than the kind of single item clipboard that's built into an operating system. What about you?
Yes, I've used the one that Ben suggested here,
Right.
Clip. I've used a couple of others as well. It's quite handy if you are copying quite large bits of information, or you're doing like editing between a few different pieces, and you need to hold on to specific bits, and you don't want to copy them in and out of another document and what have you. So it just builds them up as you go along, which is really handy. But for most people, I think just regular copy paste is usually enough.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought. Number 12, password manager suggestion is Bitwarden. I think whichever way you're approaching this is you need an alternative to LastPass. Yes. So I mean, I use the open source tools of KeepPass. Which is open source, and there's various alternatives to it that use the same sort of system and database. What about you?
I've used Bitwarden. I've used KeyPass. I never settle on one, to be honest. I don't find password managers amazingly useful all of the time. I tend to just keep them where I can see them, but that's probably not the most secure thing to do.
On a piece of paper in front of you?
Yeah, I often do that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Honestly.
I was joking.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
No. I always figure if someone can see my password list on my desk, I've got way, way bigger problems than someone actually accessing my account, because they'll be literally in my office. So
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Number 13, backup tool, Backblaze. Now, we rewind to the talk about Dropbox and cloud tools. All my vital data, I just sync to Dropbox, so I don't really use or have any requirement for a backup tool.
yeah, no, likewise. I sync everything to my own storage. I do take a yearly or 6 monthly whole image of the computer as well, which I suggest everybody does, because if you ever have to roll back, at least 6 months isn't as painful as having to wipe your entire computer. But Backblaze is a very well respected tool as far as I'm aware.
Okay, you've got the alternative of ESUS to do backup free as well. 14, storage management. Ben suggests tree size free. I wasn't aware of tree size free. I've always used Windear Stat. Why do these tools have stupid names?
Well, tree size free is the evolution of Windear Stat. So they stopped developing Windear Stat, and it's now become tree size free. Well, I'm guessing the free is because there's also a premium version.
So they actually put a bit of effort into coming up with another silly name.
Yeah, and I imagine it has all the same like fantastic squares that mean like absolutely nothing when you look at them. But for anyone listening, like, these tools are really handy if you're thinking, God, I have just bought a 500 gig SSD and it's already completely full. And like, these tools, like a storage management tool, can help you figure out where that space has gone.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago, I had a computer. It had quite a small hard drive, probably like 8 gigabytes at the most. And we downloaded something, but we didn't know where it was. And because we couldn't find it, and it was eating up a load of space, the only thing we could do was re-image the computer, reinstall Windows.
Oh, God.
Because there's no tool like Tree Size Free or Windows Stat or whatever to find it. I mean, there probably was a way of finding it in DOS or in the command prompt, but I didn't know what it was. I'm going back like 1998. sort of time I'm floating back to here. So my skills with the computer weren't that hot in those days. So a tool like this would have been perfect to find out where that big chunk of data was being eaten up. We'll finish with number 15, scripting auto hotkey. Now, this is a tool that not everyone will need, but it lets you define your own commands and create shortcuts and things. Do you use anything like this?
You know what? When I had a single screen setup, I used to use auto hotkey to create. It was like a button I could press that would keep certain windows always on top. So when you're working and you click a different window and it overrides the window that you were looking at, your browser, pops over your word processor or whatever. And that used to drive me mad. I was like, I don't want you to do that. But being on a single screen management becomes a big issue. So having this little hotkey, you'd select the window, press whatever it was, control space or something, and that window would be like pinned above all other windows, which was really, really handy. So in those instances, auto hotkey can be really handy.
Excellent. Well, do you know what? Those are a bunch of great apps that you can install on a Windows PC, or you might consider some of the alternatives that we've suggested. We're going to move on now to our recommendations. Who's going first, Gavin?
I can go first if you want.
Go on then.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. So this week, I've got a game, and it's a remake of a really, really old game. So the game is called Championship Soccer, and it's like a top-down football game that I guess in terms of its visual style is similar to Sensible Soccer.
Right.
But you take control of one player and you guide them through their career. So the remake of it, they've brought it back to life in the last few years, and people are adding bits of code to it and stuff. But I just found it's like a really in-depth football game that you don't really get these days to the same degree as if you play FIFA, your player career is over in a blip. Well, this takes you from the age of 16 all the way through to being the manager of the club in the future as well.
Right.
All the players and stuff are made up. You can tweak all of the text files in the game to add proper football team names and all that sort of stuff. But it's a bit of work to do that. There's a relatively active Discord, although it only has, like 30 or 40 people on it. And it's a bit of a niche game, but it's completely free. It's quite addictive fun in that the seasons roll by quite fast and you can get a bit of momentum going. But you're not, your player isn't guaranteed to start a game either. So in the first bit, you choose, you start off as a young 16-year-old getting into the game for the first time. And it might take you 15 to 20 minutes to even get into your first game because the manager's not picking you because you're not very good.
Wow.
And then if you're not very good in the game, you might not play again for another 15, 20 minutes or so. So you have to have a bit of patience with it. But I really like it. It's like I said, it's completely free. It's called Championship Soccer Pro, and it's worth a little look.
This isn't my recommendation, but I've been playing a similar sort of a game on Steam called Super Arcade Football, which has a sort of Sensible Soccer sort of look to it, and you can play one-off games, but it also has a story mode.
I don't think I've played it. Maybe I played the demo.
It's quite good.
It's quite good.
Yeah, it's quite good. So that's Gavin's recommendation. My recommendation, you can get more details on my recommendation from the link in the show notes, which will take you to the review of the Evercade EXP. Make use of. I'm just looking around for it. I can't find it. Hold on. No, I must have. Oh, it's here. It's here. I thought. I mean, you don't need. This isn't on video. I don't really need to be holding it. However, I'm going to hold it and I'm going to switch it on. So I got an Evercade EXP. I didn't get the Evercade EXP black version, the limited edition. I decided just to get the standard white version. This is a retro gaming handheld. It will play cartridges from Evercade. These are curated cartridges. Collections such as, bear with me, There's an Atari Lynx collection of games. There's actually 2 Atari Lynx collections, so games that you'd have had on the Atari Lynx. You can hear it booting up there. There's games from Interplay, Namco, Gremlin Graphics, all sorts, Bitmap Brothers, all sorts, Intellivision, Codemasters. There's the C64 collection, which came out late last year. These are all of the games that have come out on Evercade, compatible with the Evercade EXP. Now, what I really like about this is not just that it came with a collection of IREM games. You don't even need a cartridge for this one, because it comes with, I think, 18 Capcom games. So, this is awesome. There's also hidden games that you can unlock, but I'm talking 1942, 1943, 1944, Bionic Commander, Commando, Captain Commando, Final Fight, Breath of Fire, Forgotten Worlds, Ghouls and Ghosts, one of my favourite arcade games of all time, Legendary Wings, Mega Man, Strider, another of my favourite arcade games of all time, Street Fighter 3, Mega Man X, Mega Man 2, Vulgus, Wolf of the Battlefield, Mercs. These come built in. You got 18 games without even having to buy a cartridge, and it comes with a cartridge. And it also has HDMI out, so you can connect it to your TV. It has a Tate mode, so you can flip it round, use it vertically for games like 1942 that were released with a vertical display. Oh, it is so good. It is the culmination of both previous Evercades. It's really, really good. I'm really, really impressed with it. So that's my recommendation. Get one of those if you like retro gaming. That brings us to the end of this week's Really Useful podcast. Gavin and myself will be back next week. Everything we've talked about you'll find in the show notes. And if you know someone who will find our list of Windows apps useful, share it with them. And if you've any ideas for us, anything we could include in the show in future, let us know. We will be back next time. Until then, it's goodbye.